Now, black flag means that he's transgressed in some way. Michael Schumacher paid dearly for passing Damon Hill on the formation lap at Silverstone and then ignoring the black flag. At a Paris tribunal, the loss of his British Grand Prix points and a 2-race ban.
I mean, obviously they didn't believe me that I didn't see the black flag. I just can say that I'm really sorry for that I didn't see the black flag, that I have not taken care about the black flag. But if you, as I said, don't see it, then you don't come in and you do your race, you continue.
But the German fans believe and adore him at Hockenheim, where he's allowed to race pending an appeal against his penalties, with extra pressure following suggestions that Benetton have had access to illegal electronic starting aids. Here at Hockenheim, in fact, it looks as though the tide of success is turning against the hitherto dominant Benetton team. Because in addition to all their other problems, Hockenheim is a power circuit, which particularly suits the Williams-Renault and the Ferrari with its powerful V12 engine. After losing his Silverstone result, Schumacher's lead over Damon Hill in the World Championship is reduced to 27 points, with Alesi and Berger's prospects of scoring well now also bright for the 8 races yet to come. If Schumacher's 2-race ban after Belgium is confirmed, Damon Hill could be right with the young German by the Italian Grand Prix. But he's got no illusions.
Nothing's changed. I don't see that anything has changed. Without him ignoring the black flag, I would still have had to try to beat him in every race between now and the end of the year.
From Germany onwards, further regulation changes to slow the cars take effect, with the mandatory fitment of a 10mm laminated wood step under the chassis to reduce aerodynamic downforce. At Hockenheim, the hard-working Ferrari team are reaping the reward for all their efforts, and their popular Austrian driver Gerhard Berger is the hero of the hour. Gerhard's had an awful season, with the tragic deaths of his friends Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger. But typically, he's fought back. At Hockenheim, with a new engine, he's given Ferrari their first pole position for nearly 60 races.
When I arrived there in beginning of 93 or end of 92, there was no structure, there was no team. Now it's a team, it's a good atmosphere, it's a high technology, people understands high technology, people understands what means to win a race. So it's going in the right direction.
Jean Alesi has filled Ferrari's cup of happiness to overflowing. His 4 years with the team have seen few successes and many reverses. But 1994's been getting better all the time. Second on the grid in Canada, and now again at Hockenheim, to make the first all-Ferrari front row for years, in spite of his engine cover flying off. Ferrari are back. It wasn't a good Saturday for Damon Hill, though. Down to 3rd on the grid, provisional pole position on Friday. And with less power than the 2 Ferraris, it'll be a tough race for the 10 points he needs so much. Bad for Damon, but worse for Schumacher. Try as he might, and he tried too hard at times, he could do no better than 4th on the grid for his most important race of the year, in his German homeland. 2 Scarlet Ferraris up front on the grid then, a rich reward for ceaseless effort, ahead of the championship leaders Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill. The 2 Tyrrell Yamahas of Ukyo Katayama and Mark Blundell sandwich David Coulthard's Williams ahead of Hakkinen's McLaren, Frentzen Sauber and Irvine's Jordan. Martin Brundle is 13th for McLaren and Johnny Herbert 15th for Lotus, followed by the footwork Fords of Gianni Morbidelli and Christian Fittipaldi. 26 starters for 45 very hot, very grueling, very fast laps of Hockenheim, with the Simtek Fords of David Brabham and Jean-Marc Gounon on the back row. Between 4 and 7 seconds after the red, the green will go and the German Grand Prix will be on. It's on! Berger looks as though he's hanging fire a bit. And there's straight into the wall. The race will be stopped. Oh, look at that. The car's all over the place, and that is Mika Häkkinen again. I say again, and that is Mark Blundell. Oh my goodness. Mark Blundell and Mika Häkkinen straight out. The others don't know. There's a car with the wing adrift. Jorna Lacey slowing down. That is Andrea de Cesaris in the Sauber Mercedes. And the German Grand Prix has got off to a very bad start indeed. That is one of the Minardis that's gone into the pit wall. I didn't see whether it was Pierluigi Martini or Michele Alboreto, but my guess is that there are at least 5 cars involved in that start line incident for the German Grand Prix. And the spare car, that's Jean Todt, the boss of Ferrari. He's telling the Ferrari mechanics to get the spare car ready. That is one of the Jordans in the background, and I'm guessing that that's Blundell's Tyrrell Yamaha, because I can't see the number or any identification mark. But meantime, Gerhard Berger, not knowing, of course, is significantly leading Michael Schumacher. They won't have seen any flags yet. And Katayama is ahead of Damon Hill. This is all a bit academic, because I have little doubt that the race will be stopped. There are officials all over the starting grid area, and there is still the Minardi. Now, it's conceivable that the safety car will go out. You've seen Damon Hill slow right down there. And coming through to complete the first lap. Now, let's see what happens. Well, Gerhard Berger goes through at undiminished speed, and the yellow flags. Now, the yellow flags are being waved. That means the race is not being stopped. So it's a race between Michael Schumacher in second place. Gerhard Berger, Katayama is behind in third place. Neither of the two Williams have appeared as yet. And this is very bad news. And there's a Williams into the pits as I talk to you. It's David Coulthard has pulled into the pits. There's the proof. And I noticed that one of the Williams has got a bent front wing, and that is him. So the German Grand Prix in some ways is almost over before it begins, and Damon Hill in the background. So that's the second Williams in, and their race is effectively run because the others are streaming round. Coulthard is still in the pits. That is the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen. And to the delight of the German fans here, it is the Austrian hero Gerhard Berger and their German hero Michael Schumacher who are leading on lap 2, both of them well ahead of Ukyo Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha, 4.5 seconds in fact at the end of the first lap. And if the Ferrari is not reliable, then Schumacher is already within sight of another Grand Prix victory, and the best of all for him, because as I've said before, it is on his home circuit. He's right up behind Gerhard Berger now, trying to look for a way through on lap 2. And at the end of lap 1, as they come into the stadium, they're incidentally pulling De Cesaris' Sauber Mercedes off in front of me. The German flags, a forest of them all round Hockenheim, waving for Schumacher, giving him extra adrenaline, giving him extra speed, coming through to complete lap 2.
Well, this is the most extraordinary start to a Grand Prix, to have what looks like about 12 cars eliminated. There we are, Schumacher right with Gerhard Berger there. 12 cars eliminated on that first lap chaos. I must admit, I thought it was inevitable that the red flag would come out, and the marshals have worked with tremendous speed. They've cleared up most of the debris already, and we've just seen waved yellows all the way around, of course, the incident area here along the main start-finish straight. So we're left here with a real battle. The front runners here, Berger, Schumacher and Katayama, with Schumacher all over the back of Gerhard Berger at the moment. But what a tremendous shame. There's Damon Hill there. We don't know what his problem is, but clearly he's effectively out of the race.
David Coulthard has rejoined. Damon Hill, a potential winner, not anymore. Schumacher tucked up right underneath the rear wing of Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. And here's news that we haven't had in a Grand Prix this year and for a very long time. It is a Ligier Renault in 4th position. The Frenchman, Olivier Panis, incidentally, Jean Alesi appears to be out of the race. We know Häkkinen is, we know Blundell is, we know Pierluigi Martini is, and on lap 3, as you look down at the stadium, Berger leads, and that's Damon Hill rejoining the race, well down, of course, some 2 laps down now.
And now here's the start. This is what we want to see. Katayama flicks out. Now look 2/3 of the way down the back. Look off to your right. We should expect to see a Minardi slicing through. There it is, coming across there. And Minardi, and it's difficult to see from where we are, but 4 cars out there. Now there's Häkkinen. Häkkinen comes across to the right of your picture. Häkkinen is out. Blundell gets taken out. Now here we go again. and looked. Now that was Lund. Now that looked like maybe Coulthard. That's where Coulthard lost his wing. Coulthard touched Häkkinen on the way into this. Have another look. Let's look at the front. The back we can't see. Häkkinen gets very crossed up. Look, Häkkinen on the left of your picture, about 3 rows back. Forget what's behind that, but look at Häkkinen down the left-hand side. Coulthard to his left. Häkkinen moves across. Well, I'm afraid Häkkinen, a little bit like at Monaco, Häkkinen, I believe he moved across to the left. He tried to take a slightly wider entry to the first corner. He didn't make it because Coulthard was there. Coulthard lost his wing. Häkkinen lost his race. I'm afraid I think that Häkkinen should have known at that point that Coulthard was alongside, because as soon as he moved to the left, he touched. So clearly Coulthard did not actually drive into the back of Häkkinen there.
So now let's start looking at what might happen ahead. You can see how close Schumacher is to Berger. You can see how hard the young German is trying to get past the Austrian in front of him. Now, we imagine that it's quite likely that Gerhard Berger will come in for 2 tyre stops. It's quite possible that Michael Schumacher will do the same thing. And that is Ukyo Katayama. He was in 3rd position. He spun to a standstill. Has he affected the suspension at all? Is he going to be able to get out of the gravel trap because he's tried to drive through it? You're with him now. And that will mean that Olivier Panis will come up to 3rd position. It will almost certainly mean that Eric Bernard will come up into 4th position, and still through the heat haze towards us at some 200 miles an hour on the 7th lap out of 45, Gerhard Berger quite calmly looking in his mirror. What happened to Damon Hill when he came into the pits in the Williams? What happened to David Coulthard? Tony Jardine was there, he can tell us.
Obviously, it was mayhem for the Williams team and a great deal of drama and frantic activity down here, because Coulthard was in here for 1.5 minutes having that nose cone change after we've established now that he was hit by Häkkinen. But we didn't know what had happened to Damon Hill. He had been hit, according to Patrick Head, by Katayama in the chicane, and he lost 3 3/4 minutes down here in the pits. They're fighting back now, but the Williams guys did a hell of a lot of work, and they didn't need both cars in the pits so early in the race.
But now Schumacher is right under the wing, and I forecasted he's going to make a challenge for the lead. He comes out behind Berger, who just moves across that bit. Schumacher tries to go around the outside, but into the chicane, he'll never get through there. And I noticed that there's gravel on the apex.
Guess what Schumacher tried to do there, having failed to get by on the inside when Berger closed the door, he then swept to the outside to try and get a wide exit to allow him to have a faster entry. And he's looking, I must say, he's looking really as if he's all over Schumacher, all over Berger. There's nothing Schumacher can do now on this next stadium section.
And we just heard from the pits that Jean Alesi retired because his engine went, so they'll be hoping it doesn't happen to Berger. So there are the leaders, and Mark Blundell, whose race did not last very long in the Tyrrell, is with Tony Jardine.
Bit of disappointment for you after such a great weekend in practice for Tyrrell. Tell us exactly what happened.
Well, I got off the line reasonably well. Me and Coulthard were quite close to each other, but Mika Häkkinen, he just came from nowhere down the inside. I think he was going too fast and too tight for the first corner, and basically came across the face of us, and I think Barrichello then hit me up the backside. I mean, as you say, it's a great shame. I'm sure the Tyrrell Yamaha would have had a good result, either one of us, but it's wiped out half the field. I mean, the race is not really a race now.
Are you going to be having a word with him, do you think, afterwards?
I already spoke to the guy when he came back across the track, and as far as he can see, he didn't do anything wrong by the looks of it. He said, I don't know what happened, so, you know.
What happened to your teammate's car? Katayama's out as well now, do you know?
It looks like he had a sticking throttle, which caused us a problem at Silverstone. I don't really know, but it sounds like a sticking throttle, which is a real shame, because the guys have put a lot of work in this weekend, and, you know, we'll have to wait till the next race, but I'm sure we're going to be there.
Thank you very much, Mark. Hard luck.
And Schumacher's in the pits.
Yes, Michael Schumacher into the pits on lap 12. Now, why is he into the pits? If he's coming in for a tyre change, I would be very surprised for it to be this early, in which case he will certainly be having a 2-stop race. And that is precisely why he is in. And this, of course, gives Gerhard Berger the opportunity to increase his lead. Now, is Michael Schumacher going to get out before Olivier Panis? And the answer is no, because the Ligier has gone through, and the totally unexpected has happened. Into the pits, incidentally, comes Martin Brundle. And Schumacher rejoins with Berger now in the lead. Olivier Panis is up into second place. I'm not sure about Eric Bernard because I was watching other things.
Well, that was just the right thing there for Michael Schumacher to do. I'm sure that he was on a two-stop strategy. We did think that would make the first stop between lap 12 and lap 16, and we are on lap 12. But I think that does just endorse the fact that it's the right thing to do, because Schumacher was being held up by Gerhard Berger there.
Coulthard is now 1 minute 26 seconds behind the leaders, and he was 1 minute 39 not so long ago. He's in 13th place on the same lap. Damon Hill is going extremely quick, but is still a lap adrift. There are only 14 out of the 26 starters left on lap 14. So that is Berger. He is leading, and Eddie Irvine is in the pit lane with Tony Jardine.
Eddie, another very short race for you. Tell us exactly what happened.
Well, I didn't make a great start, and Hakkinen made a better one than Coulthard, and there's a bit of a gap up the inside of Coulthard. Bit of a risky gap to go for, and Hakkinen went for it. And then next thing, we're coming down towards the corner, and Hakkinen either loses it on his own or he gets touched or something, and he shoots across to the left of the track sideways, and there's just nowhere for the guys behind to go, and we all end up in the sand trap on the outside.
Do you think there'll be a steward's inquiry?
Well, I don't know. I think it needs to be looked at and see actually what happened, because I'm sitting very low. I can't actually tell what happened up front, but it'll be looked at, and if something needs to be done, hopefully it'll be done.
A lot of unhappy drivers.
Sorry?
A lot of unhappy drivers.
Yeah, well, I think the race should have been stopped also. Like, there was 11 cars out at the first corner, so I think it's bad for the spectators and everybody involved not to have stopped the race at that point. It seems strange decision.
Eddie, thanks very much and hard luck.
Hey, thanks.
You are watching the new second place man, Michael Schumacher, who came in and took on new tyres on lap 13 from second place. So the race now depends on what the Ferrari tyre strategy is. Gerhard Berger's tyres will be getting more and more worn. Schumacher is on new tyres, and the question is, how long would it take for the Ferrari to come in, stop, take on new tyres and rejoin, and would Schumacher retake the lead? Take the lead.
Well, I certainly would have expected Gerhard Berger to come into the pits on this lap. He hasn't. He's just gone by the end of his 15th lap there, and that does indicate, bearing in mind it's a 45-lap race, and normally these drivers and teams have a strategy of stopping at exactly 30, and in comes Verstappen there. Verstappen coming into the pits, again the right thing for him to do, because he was being held up by the Ligier. The Ligier with its Renault engine is very quick indeed down the straights, about 10 miles an hour faster than Verstappen, in fact. Into the pits he comes. Very difficult as a driver, you know, to judge. We had a quick glimpse of it from Verstappen. Oh, and fuel. That's the first time we've had a fuel splash. Oh, my goodness me.
Well, now, just let's keep calm. There are a lot of fire officials down there, and the fire is already out. And remember, when Gerhard Berger had his car burst into flames in Imola and he was sitting in the car unconscious, the fire marshals still got him out in plenty of time. And Verstappen should not have been in that car for more than a couple of seconds or so. They have medical air piped through to their helmets in case of a problem like this. And you can see the Benetton down there, and I cannot see Verstappen in it, so they've got him out safely. But that's the first time that the thing that everybody has feared since the reintroduction of refueling has happened. And with Verstappen out, the situation on lap 17, as you look at the lone Ferrari, is that he, Gerhard Berger, is leading the German Grand Prix. Replay.
Right, there was the replay there. Now, when the nozzle came out of that was supposed to seal it. The fuel splashed, and see how 2-3 seconds later, that tremendous inferno there. Verstappen in the middle of it must have been absolutely terrified. I saw him get out of the car after the fire marshals did a superb job. And in fact, the team have their own mechanics there. They're all in fireproof clothing. They all have extinguishers. They put the fire out very quickly indeed. But dreadfully frightening moment for Verstappen. The first time, as we've said, it's happened this year, but proves that it can happen. But those couplings should have self-sealed. That should not have been able to happen. That fuel is under a modest amount of pressure, and we saw that what must have been 2 or 3 gallons there spraying out, and clearly with the heat that surrounds these cars, it was virtually inevitable that there was going to be a fire. But certainly very well dealt with, and hopefully no one has suffered any injury there because of the safety contingencies that exist.
Gerhard Berger now, is he coming into the pits on this lap? This is lap 17. If he keeps on going consistently, and into the pits now comes the Williams, and Gerhard Berger goes through. David Coulthard is coming in from 12th position, and there is no activity around the Williams. It's not a tyre stop, so this looks like yet another, the 13th retirement in the German Grand Prix. And Michael Schumacher is in trouble. Did you see that burst of smoke from the back of the car? Jonathan, your view?
Well, his engine sounded dreadful. Just as he came past us in the commentary box, the engine sounded dreadful. I am sure Michael Schumacher has a terminal engine problem there.
Well, he's been forcing, yes, that is Schumacher, and he's going visibly slower. He's going visibly slower. The crowd will be absolutely distraught. So will Michael, of course, because he was desperately hoping to become the first German to win his home Grand Prix at a World Championship event. And Michael Schumacher looks to me as though he is virtually touring in now. Something very dramatic has happened at the back of the car. I'm not going to say it was engine because I don't know, but you're looking back at him now. And he's banging his fist in sheer agonised frustration. Gerhard Berger is coming in to the pits. Now, he's safe. He will have had a message from the Ferrari radio system to say that Michael Schumacher is out because they can watch television just as easily as we can. And you are watching race leader Gerhard Berger, who is now 32 seconds ahead of Olivier Panis, making what may be his only tyre stop.
It's quite a long stop there for Gerhard Berger. Looks like they may have... No, he's okay. He is putting a lot of fuel on board that car. In fact, he's for sure lost about 6 or 7 seconds, though. He should have had, I think, about 9 or 10 seconds worth of fuel. He stopped on lap 20. That's as we thought for making just one stop. But some kind of a problem. I don't think it'll cause him any significant problem in terms of the result, as Schumacher comes into the pits now, and that surely must mean retirement for Schumacher.
And it's a very, very close thing for first place at the moment, because as Gerhard Berger drove out of the pit lane, thundering past the commentary boxes, which are on the start and finish area, went Olivier Panis. But during the race, Berger was lapping, of course, a lot quicker, and this indeed is the bitter sight for the people in the grandstands and for the Benetton team of Michael Schumacher, who has won so many races this year that even with his penalty after Britain, he's leading the World Championship by 27 points, retiring from the German Grand Prix. Well, bad news for McLaren and Martin Brundle fans, because he seems to have pulled out of the race. Indeed, I'm beginning to wonder how many people are going to finish the German Grand Prix. There were only 12 left running when Martin Brundle stopped, so that's down to 11 now. And you're watching Gerhard Berger on his 22nd lap, having made his tyre stop. There is the Ligier behind him in second place. So Berger leads. Tony Jardine has news for us.
Yeah, I'm behind the Benetton pit, and Michael Schumacher has just walked past ejectedly, but there is some good news, because I've had it confirmed by the team that everybody is A-OK. Jos Verstappen is back in the motorhome. He's all right. And one of the mechanics that was very slightly burnt in the face has come out to say, please tell everybody at home we're A-OK.
Good news. Thank you, Tony Jardine. And that is Olivier Panis in the Ligier Renault, hardly believing his luck, I am quite sure, because the car he can see ahead of him, and the only car ahead of him in the race, is the race leader, Gerhard Berger. So, who is this man, Olivier Panis? Well, I can tell you that he comes from Lyon. This is only his 9th Grand Prix, and he's in second place. And he's had a tremendously reliable season. That's Bernard behind him with the red flash. So you saw the first 3 cars, Ferrari, Ligier. This is Eric Bernard, who comes from Istres. This is his 40th Grand Prix, and by no means his first team, because he's driven for Lola, he's driven for Ligier before. He had to drop out of Grand Prix racing because he broke his leg very badly, and it took a long time for it to recover. And that is Martin Brundle, helmet off. He's got a ball patch, I don't think he'll like that. Martin Brundle is being pulled away in the McLaren. Damon Hill, by the way, is in 10th position. There he is in the pits. And he is still a lap behind the leaders. Watch his pit stop. I'll give you the order because it's Berger, Parnis, Bernard, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Fittipaldi 4th, Morbidelli 5th, Comas is 6th, Beretta is 7th, Gounod is 8th, Brabham is 9th, both the Simtex running and higher than they have ever been. Damon Hill in 10th place, you see him leaving the pits now. Thank heavens we have Tony Jardine in the pit lane because there's a lot of people for him to talk to today, particularly, and here he is, David Coulthard.
David, a dramatic race so far, but also for the Williams team, problems right at the beginning of the race. Tell us what happened.
Well, I didn't make the best start, and I was a bit slow into second gear. Hakkinen tried to come up my inside and Blundell down the outside, and they're both crazy, so they both tried to squeeze me, not realising they've got another crazy man at the side of me. So with both of them doing that, Hakkinen hit my front wheel, but then went across and took off my front wing and took out Blundell as well. So, you know, he's been involved in a lot of things, and I'm not happy about it.
And your reason for your final retirement?
We have a gearbox problem, so just when we thought things couldn't get worse with having to stop for a nose, then we had a gearbox problem, so I was jammed in top gear.
Well, you're not happy, but hard luck, you're okay. Thank you, David Coulthard.
Swinging criticism of Mika Hakkinen from David Coulthard. A lot of people may well think it was justified because Hakkinen has certainly been involved in a lot of incidents this year. But Berger is still leading, and he's now in the Ferrari 31 seconds ahead of the Ligier Renault of Olivier Parnis.
Yes, Hakkinen is certainly, undoubtedly, very quick indeed, but he's also impetuous. And from what we saw at the start, from our camera looking at that start, I felt that Hakkinen had swept across the front of Coulthard, and both Coulthard and Mark Blundell seem to have endorsed that. So I think we can be fair to say that is the case. Now, of course, Hakkinen was responsible for two other, or certainly involved in two other start line incidents. He touched Senna up the back off the line at the second Grand Prix of the year at Aida in Japan, and that was totally down to his own misjudgment of Senna's braking point. Hakkinen was going too quickly, too far into the corner. And then at Monaco we had the incident, as you may remember, when Hill and Hakkinen tangled. We thought at the time that Hill had actually come up the back of Hakkinen, but indeed there was certainly evidence that Hakkinen had swept across in front of Hill. He's certainly done that this time here at Hockenheim, and I think that maybe the time has come for the stewards to have a look at his driving. He certainly, I think, needs to settle down a bit in his start line antics.
Do not on any account think of this as a dull one-car race, because you are watching now a driver with the team that has the greatest motor racing tradition of them all. Enzo Ferrari's team, who first drove in a Grand Prix in 1950, and if it wins here, and that is Gianni Morbidelli coming in for his footwork tyre stop from 5th position, and if Gerhard Berger does win here, he will match the McLaren record of 104 Grand Prix victories, admittedly from far more races for Ferrari than McLaren. But it's a great team that's always been in the World Championship, that has been at the top of sports car racing, is a legendary name with a charismatic personality, and the prancing horse, which you see on the yellow background of Gerhard Berger's Ferrari as he comes through the long right-hander to cross the grid and finish his 30th lap, is a sign of that team.
Well, hopefully it will be a great race for Ferrari, but it's also going to be a great race for a few of the back-end teams that don't normally figure, and that includes Ligier, of course, and currently in 2nd and 3rd place, the Footwork team in 4th and 5th, and also in 6th and 7th, the Larousse team. It's very important to them to have some chance of picking up a point during each half of the season, because that can make the difference between their whole travelling costs for the year being paid for by FOCA or not. And it's this kind of window of opportunity when things go desperately wrong for a lot of the front runners, when the midfield and back-end teams can have a chance of picking up some positions and some points as a result. And indeed, I was a beneficiary of that back in 1987, racing with Tyrrell, when teammate Philippe Streff and I were dicing for 4th place, and eventually I finished 5th, Streff finished 4th, but that was the best result we had with Tyrrell in my 3 years with them, and that was in just that kind of situation when a lot of the front-running turbo teams in those days fell by the wayside.
Lap 31, riding with Damon Hill, and there are 10 cars and drivers left out of the 26 who started, as Hill goes through and unlaps himself from the third place man, Eric Bernard, in the Ligier. Retirements then, 16 of them: Jean Alesi, Mika Häkkinen, Mark Blundell, Pierluigi Martini, Frentzen, Irvine, Barrichello, Johnny Herbert, Zanardi, Alboreto, Katayama, Coulthard, Verstappen, Michael Schumacher and Martin Brundle.
A little bit of a clue as to what might have happened with that fire down at the Benetton pit earlier on, when Verstappen's car lost its fuel out of the refueling hose. It seems that there's a possibility that there's Jean Alesi there, no doubt with John Todd on the right, looking at following Gerhard Berger's progress very closely indeed. But it seems that when that hose went onto the side of the Benetton, it did not go in squarely. Therefore, that might have depressed the coupling release to allow the fuel to go through. And as it was not on squarely, it sprayed out of the side. Now, that's pure conjecture. We don't know, I hasten to add, but I'm quite sure that the FIA, who have been determined to ensure that refueling is a safe mechanism, is a safe inclusion in the Formula One World Championship, will want to look very carefully to see how that incident did happen, to make sure that it cannot happen in the future.
Well, there's been a rumour here, while you're watching Eric Bernard in third place in the Ligier, that Benetton have propositioned Damon Hill to join them with Michael Schumacher next year, in a situation where, as far as I know anyway, Damon Hill has not yet had a firm offer from Frank Williams for 1995, with rumours of Nigel Mansell coming back, in which case the scenario might be that Nigel Mansell would lead the Williams team with David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher would be with Damon Hill, but whether they would have equal status if it happened, I know not, but it would make a fine pairing. And if you're wondering what's happened to Damon Hill, the answer is he's still running, but he's 13 seconds behind Olivier Beretta, with no hope of catching the Monegasque, unless Beretta has a problem, as Gerhard Berger goes through, crosses the line to start his 45th and last lap in the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, out of the stadium into the first leg through the forest. That is Parnis in second position, and he's 53 seconds behind Gerhard Berger.
Well, it really has been the most extraordinary race of 1994, after that start line incident, which had a number of accidents taking part within it. There was absolute chaos that eliminated some 13 cars. Now, following on from that, the casualties have generally been in the midfield area, but at the front we've seen both Williams cars affected by it. Damon Hill having a problem when he was hit up the back. David Coulthard losing a front wing, although he subsequently lost his gearbox. But Ferrari really have come through here. They've showed real progress. Berger pole position and to win the race. Alesi second on the grid. Engine problems on lap one, sadly, but a grim weekend for Benetton, with Schumacher retiring with the blown engine, and we suspect, and Verstappen exiting the race with that dramatic inferno when the refueling all went so wrong.
Well, you've seen the Ferrari mechanics. They are all ready for their moments of delirious joy and euphoria as Gerhard Berger exits the Senna curve. There they are, looking expectantly down the road to see the first Ferrari victory since 1990. And he's into the stadium now. This is going to be a historic victory for Gerhard Berger and Ferrari, and starts off the second half of the 1994 Grand Prix season, the World Championship, on a fabulously high note. Gerhard Berger, say the flags. I hope the German crowd are going to be generous, because if Schumacher can't win, they surely want Gerhard Berger to. And Gerhard Berger crosses the line, takes the checkered flag, wins the German Grand Prix, and Ferrari equal McLaren's record of Grand Prix victories. You saw the mechanics, you see Gerhard Berger, and you see Jean Todt. He is the man, he's the disciplinarian, he is the martinet who has built the Ferrari team from a disparate collection of elements into a cohesive, hard-punching, well-working organisation. And a wonderful, wonderful day for Ligier, who have been through such hard times in recent years. There is Olivier Parnis, his first podium finish, the European Formula 3000 champion of 1993. And behind him, Eric Bernard, who has hung on to get his place with Ligier, and he's seen it come good today. He finishes in third position